That's exactly how your nails get damaged from gel polish. Most often, these are the kinds of statements I hear, but in reality, it's not the gel polish itself that damages your nails, but improper handling and not taking certain factors into account. So let me tell you, a demo client came in brought by her own nail technician. Basically, they both came together to see me for the procedure. Everyone had very different expectations. The nail technician, of course, came to figure out what went wrong and why things turned out this way, and also to complain that the client still wants to look beautiful. Here on the index finger, the nail has completely come off, and the client says she pinched it in a door, so her nail actually lifted up entirely. And of course, the client herself asked the most important question for her, which is what we can use to cover the nails after this. Write in the comments what you think. Should we cover nails like these or not? I'll do my best. I'll try to discuss it as objectively as possible without any judgments, so I'll just be explaining. So the first thing I usually start with when working with clients like this is a consultation, and it was very convenient for me in this case because her technician came with her, and of course I was able to find out exactly what procedure was done, what technique was used, and what materials were used. I'll probably talk about all of that in this video. Although, to be honest, I don't think it's super accurate or reliable because I'm going to mention what material was used, but I can say that yes. By the way, these are the photos she sent to our work chat. She says this is how her nails feel after the coating. Everything cracks, everything hurts, it's impossible to touch her fingers. These are her nails right after the manicure, so everything swells up. Well, by the way, these are clear signs of some kind of allergic reaction like inflammation, swelling, cracks, and itching. And this lasts for about 4 days. She actually says, for 4 days I can't do anything with my hands, I really suffer and struggle. But okay, we've looked at the pictures, we've seen the photos, now let's get back to what we're doing. Now I'm going to do the cleaning and I'll show it in as much detail and for as long as possible, of course, but basically it's just the complete removal of the old material, which, as you can see, there is quite a lot of here. Also, the cleaning is necessary because we need to remove the entire uneven free edge. And the first thing we'll start with is noticing that the coating has been applied in a thick layer. Experienced technicians watching this video have probably already guessed that a base leveling was done here. This technique is not really relevant anymore. Back when we first started doing leveling, when it had just entered our industry, we used to level with bases. But then we learned to work with gels and it turned out to be a much safer method. And now I'll explain why. So, when I asked the technician who came with the client what specific technique she uses, and I posted this in short videos, she said, I don't use primer or dehydrator. I apply the base coat directly as a leveling layer without any base layer underneath. And I think most of you already understand what I'm getting at. Of course, you should never apply a thick leveling layer of base with an apex directly onto a nail that doesn't have any other base underneath it that has definitely cured, because such a large amount of material just doesn't cure properly. And if we add to all this the fact that most likely the nails were already too thin, that is, unfortunately, I can't know whether they were overfiled by the technician or from improper removal. Or maybe the client does a lot of work with her hands and often gets lifting. And this leads to the loss of the dorsal layer, meaning the very layer of the nail plate that we need for adhesion. In general, there are some external factors that we can't track right now. And most likely all of this is very interconnected. As you can see, after removal, we can observe that on the index finger, the nail has completely detached, the one she caught in the door. On all the other fingers, we have uneven free edge lines, there is keratosis under the nails, and there's another important point. I see overfiled sidewalls and ingrowth points. You see, they look a little bit like a waistline, so if you notice something resembling a waist at the ingrowth points on your client's nails, just know. Most likely this was incorrect work, with the flame bit meaning the wrong angle or the wrong size of the flame bit's belly. Maybe it's just uncomfortable for you, so you should rethink your technique. And especially when I was already reviewing the video during editing, I want to say that it feels like there still seem to be additional signs. And this so-called nail pitting, which is often a marker that a person may have nail psoriasis. But besides suspicions, again, yes, I'm not a doctor, I can't make diagnoses, we need to remember that. Aside from such suspicions, I can say that there are clearly skin problems here. But for now, I suggest you enjoy, if I can put it that way, the macro shots. Here they are. I tried to film them up close. And here we can see all the old cracks, all these remnants of the coating, and we can also observe this void. So with scraps of the nail bed, with some kind of tissue that doesn't slough off, and of course possibly some built-up residue, meaning food, cosmetics, soap, basically anything could get in there. By the way, Kalina said that she tries to clean these nails thoroughly with both soap and a brush. But no matter how hard she tries, of course, it's impossible to get deep in there. Of course, we'll give her credit for at least trying, but when I showed her a close-up of what was going on there and explained that she's living her life and cooking food with these nails and so on, everyone understood at that moment. Well, anyway, now let's get back to what other problems I found here. The nails, well, actually I want to say that they're pretty thick. After shortening them, I also filed off a bit more of the base coat because there was still some left. Here I had to work carefully because the nail bed was a bit crumbly and delaminated. Here's what I want to say. Pay attention to the cuticle. There are some clients whose cuticle doesn't seem to connect to the nail plate, meaning as it grows out, it doesn't stick or adhere. On her pinky, the cuticle is kind of stuck down. Take a close look, but on the other fingers, I don't see that. So it feels like some areas have already been pushed back with a pusher. So in this area, the cuticle isn't performing its main function. And we can see that there are some little crusts, patches of dry skin right on the cuticle. And of course, I asked my client if she had any allergies, maybe if she had been diagnosed with eczema or had any dermatitis. She denied everything. But I'd venture to say that she just doesn't know about it and hasn't consulted a doctor about this issue. I found this out a little later, so it's just that there's simply no diagnosis because it was never looked into. And here, pay attention, you can see that the skin is a bit reddish and these so-called crusts are present here. So if you see clients like this, keep in mind that you need to be very, very careful with them. And this could also be one of the factors that led to her nails ending up in this condition. So it's not just the technician's work and not just her initial condition. A lot of factors have to come together at once. As I promised, here I'm filing down the base a little bit because there was really a lot of it. And after I heard from the technician that the base was applied here without a base layer, of course, I couldn't help but ask which brand of base the technician uses. In this case, she said, I work with the TNL brand. I've always worked with it and I still do, and everything holds up well. I'm completely satisfied. And by the way, regarding the thickness of the nails, she also explained why she applies the base so thickly. It's because a thin layer doesn't last well on the client. That's such a sad story. Of course, it upsets me because if a technician's only priority is for the coating to last and not for it to be safe for the client, well, that needs to be reconsidered a bit. That's something to work on. Of course, that's just my opinion. Write in the comments what you think is more important. For it to last or for it to also be safe. By the way, there is already a technique for working with gel. It's publicly available. Not only do I show it, but other vloggers show it too, so it's all available. And there too, a base layer is used. Well, now I'm filing the most interesting part. The middle finger, actually the index finger, the one she pinched, and of course it lifted. I think you can already see that a whole new civilization has practically formed there. And of course I couldn't help but savor this moment. For everyone who loves picking videos, give me some likes. I don't know, let me know in the comments if you really enjoy this kind of content. I put a lot of effort into filming it, it was tough. I tried to film this as close as possible so you could see all the beauty. Look at the lovely stuff that's built up there, and here, using this nail as an example, we can see how everything under the nail plate gets all sweaty, how moisture accumulates there, it can't get out, there's no ventilation, no air circulation, and of course there's that effect of a soaked finger, the so-called maceration effect. Basically, the point is that everything there has gotten waterlogged. What does this tell us? That it's a favorable environment for new life to develop, and of course we don't want that. Whether there is new life here or not, we can't say right now, because only a laboratory can determine that after analysis. All we can do now is look and gasp in the comments, because yes, this is certainly unfortunate. But I always find such comments amusing, like, how did she let herself get to this point? Well, actually, you can't really see it, especially when it's under the coating. That's why it's recommended to remove the coating, because in this situation, a person can't even visually check it. And as you can see, part of the nail was lifted and part of it is still quite firm and now fits closely to the nail bed. So when water gets in there, it doesn't evaporate at all. You see, the nail bed has become kind of whitish, but in a few hours it will definitely calm down, it will dry out, and everything will be much better. But for now, it is what it is. I'm doing the cleaning with pedicure nippers, which I actually sent for sharpening afterward because I realized that I had been picking at something with them and messed up the tips. So I got a little upset, but thankfully everything can be resharpened. I hope the blade won't be too damaged after this. The cleaning itself in this case, as always, is simply about removing all of the free edge. That's basically the whole point of any cleaning. So you always remove everything that's dry, everything we don't need. Of course, you can't always reach everywhere with nippers, and in some areas I start working with drill bits. Before that, I used a small carbide bit, a little ball, to file down the nail and make it easier to trim. And then I use a diamond bit. You can use ball bits, microphone-shaped bits, or drop-shaped bits. Basically, I just took the one I had on hand. But it's important to use a blue or green abrasive at this stage. That's just because with the red one, it would take us a really, really long time to file. And here you can see how by switching from forward to reverse, you can very nicely remove this little lifting. And I evened out the seam between the nail and the nail bed, and now nothing will get in there for sure. No dirt will accumulate there. And the most important thing about cleaning is to clean the nails in such a way that there's nothing left to catch on at all. Not on clothes, not on anything. And most importantly, no dirt should get in there. There could be food, cosmetics, or just some dirt from outside, and so on. So this is the most important point. And now, after this kind of cleaning, it will be easier for the nails to grow because there are no dry patches, no old keratin buildup, no old skin left here. The nails are absolutely clean. Next, you can only use oil to stimulate growth or growth-stimulating products. But the most important thing in all of this is that you need to massage regularly. That means you need to massage both the nail bed and the growth area, where the cuticle is. Because when we do self-massage, even just for 5 minutes, I know it sounds like, well, just 5 minutes, but actually it feels long. So you really need to make it a habit. But in my client's defense, I want to say that she promised she's very disciplined and will apply everything I tell her to. And I can say right away that I recently saw her photos with slightly grown out nails, and you can really tell from her skin that she's definitely moisturizing her cuticles, and that's really commendable. That's worth a like and a comment to support the channel because that's really cool. It's very rare for clients to follow all the recommendations this well. As for the cuticle itself, I decided to do a very light treatment here, just to remove any little flakes and dry areas, so it looks aesthetically pleasing and most importantly, so nothing gets caught on her nails. And the danger with this kind of skin is that, despite looking dry, it's actually very easy to injure these fingers during the treatment. And at the very end I'll show you, yes, I did have a little mishap on one finger and I only noticed it when I was applying the oil. But 9 out of 10 were successful, and of course that makes me very happy. As you can see, I didn't use a cutting tool for the cuticle, I only did a light E-file treatment here, and I really tried not to make it too clean, just to make sure I didn't overdo it. Because people who suffer from eczema have very typical skin. It looks thick, but in reality it's very thin and tears easily and starts to bleed. If you've worked with these clients, you already know this. It's a real problem and makes manicures especially difficult for these people. So here we apply drops. I use oil here. As always, I have oil from the brand Domix. You can just search for it on a marketplace and you'll find it. And as I promised, these are her hands, the photos that she sent herself. Look at how moisturized and well groomed her skin is. She applied both the oil and the growth stimulator I gave her very diligently. I gave her everything to take home. I often give these products to my models so they can start right away, since ordering themselves takes time. So this is the result we got, and I was really glad that she understood everything and responded well to everything. But a few days later, maybe a week later, she sent those photos I showed you and asked if we could cover these nails with something. That's the story. Of course, for now, we can't put any coating on them, but I would be happy to restore her nails if she comes again. Because I know that she thought I insulted her, and she decided to be upset with me for talking about it on the internet, and she thinks it was hurtful. But I think the information is useful and will help many people, and of course you can share your opinion in the comments. This was Lavrentia Valenovna. Bye bye and see you next time.